Welcome, Shana Tova. If you're at home, thank you for tuning in for this early service. Great. Molly, you're here. You're going to be on in a little bit. That was stressing me out. Okay. Obviously, this is not normal. Nothing about this is normal. Nothing about the last 6 months has been normal. But I want for a moment to say and ask, is it possible that for the next about an hour and a half, can we use our tradition, our prayers, our songs, our teachings? Can we use it to push everything else aside and to create a little space here in this extended room and there in our virtual space to invite something special in? To bring in not all of the things this isn't, but to bring in what it can be. To allow at this moment, this service, to connect us to each other, to our tradition, and if we're lucky, to God. We'll begin with a special Shana Tova from Cantor Cohen.
Thank you, Rabbi. So repeat after me. We're just going to take some words and put it together to the Rosh Hashanah Nusach. Repeat, Lishana. No, that's not good. Come on. A spiritual awakening. Lishana.
Lishana.
Tova.
Tova.
Tikatevu.
Tikatevu.
V'teichatemu.
V'tikatevu.
Lishana Tova. Tikatevu. Lishana Tova. Tikatevu. Tikatevu. V'teichatemu. Lishana Tova Tikatevu. Lishana Tova Tikatevu. Tikatevu. V'teichatemu.
We rise and we turn in our books to page 160. We're jumping right to our Torah service. We rise on page 160.
Vayehi b'neso ha'aron vayomer Moshe Koma Adonai veyafutzu oyevecha veyanusu misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzeh Torah ki mitzion tetzeh Torah udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah Torah Baruch shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol Adonai Iti Uneramema Shemo Yachedav Lecha Adonai Hagdula V'Hagivona V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hod Kechole B'Shamayim U'V'Haaretz Lecha Adonai Hamamlecha V'Hamidnasei Lechol Erosh Ramimu Ramimu Adonai Eloheinu V'Hishtachavu V'Hishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Ramimu Ramimu Adonai Eloheinu V'Hishtachavu V'Hishtachavu Le'Kodsho Kekadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Maybe seated.
Lishana tova tikatevu, Lishana tova tikatevu, tikatevu, vetechateimu.
As we continue our non-traditional service, I left my book over there. We go back actually to the original Torah service. In Israel, when they first created the service surrounding the weekly reading of the Torah, they only had one aliyah. In the beginning, one person came up, said the blessing before, then we had our Torah reading, and then once all the Torah reading was done, the blessing after was instituted. So we're going to follow that custom today, and our Ba'alat Maftir, Ricky Chaskis, is going to be our only aliyah this morning at call it the aliyah circle. It's kind of like the on-deck circle. That was a joke. Come on. Work with me, people. Thank you to the 3 people who just laughed. You are all getting written in the good book. ויעזור ויחם ויושב לכל אוכסים בו ונאמר אמן הגובו גודל אלינו כבוד לתורה במקום כהן יעמוד רחל איתה בת פסח ברוך שאתה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו תורת אדוני תמימה משבת נפש עדות אדוני נאמנה מחיקמת פתי פיקודי אדוני ישרים משמחי לב מצוות אדוני ברא מאירת עיניים ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום ברוך אדוני המברך לעולם ועד אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. So at each of our services we'll be having 3 of our readings. Some of them will be live, some of them will be on our screens. And the rest are all available on our website. So if you want either after the holiday or during to catch them, you can. Molly is going to be reading the 6th aliyah for the first day on Shabbat, which is on 172 at the top of the page.
Amen. Vayehi v'yetahi vayomer Avimelech ufi kol sar tevo el Abraham lemor Elohim imecha b'chol asher ata oseh v'ata yishava li Elohim heina im tishkor li ulenini ulenehi kahesed asher asiti imcha taseh imadi im ha'aretz asher garta ba vayomer Avraham Anohi Yishaveya Ve'ohiach Avraham et Avdei Avimelech Alodu Be'yer Hamayim Asher Gazlu Avdei Avimelech Vayomer Avimelech Lo Yadati Mi Asa Et Hadavar Hazeh Ve'gamata Lo Higata Li Ve'gamanohi Lo Shamati Bilti Hayom Vayikra Avraham son uvankar vayitin la'avimelech vayichretu shneim bri.
Yishar kochech, Tamali. You can go back to your seat. You did a lovely job, and you made it on time. Well done. We continue now on our screens. Devin Fogel will be reading the 7th Aliyah on page 172. I'll be following along in the Torah.
Amen. Vayativ Avraham et Sheva Kisot Hatzon Levadhen. Vayomer Avimelech el Avraham Maheina Sheva Kivasot Ha'ela Asher Hitzafta Levadana. Vayomer Ki et Sheva Kivasot Tika Miadi Ba'avur Tehile Leada Ki Hafarti et Haba'er Hazo Al kin kara lemakom hahu be'er sheva ki sham nisba'u shenehem vayar kitu v'ri be'er sheva vayakam Avimelech ufi kol shar seva'o vayashavu el eretz plishtim vayatam eshel be'er sheva vayakara sham b'shem Adonai el olam vayagar Avraham be'eretz plishtim yamim ravim.
Koch, Devin, it was a great smile at the end. Please rise as we lift and dress our first Sefer Torah. Oh boy. Okay. Vezot HaTorah asher ksa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai Yad Moshe Torah, 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 Torah.
Eitz chaimehi lama chazikim ba v'tomecha meyushare neracha darchenom v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem.
You may be seated while we continue with the Maftir reading, which can be found on page 180.
Amen. Uva chodesh hashvi, bechala chodesh, mikra kodesh, yelachem, kol melechet avodah, lo tasu, yom teruach, yelachem. Vasitem olah, lereach michoach lahadonai, par ben bakar, echad ayil echad, kevasim b'nei shana, Shiva tehemimim, umin chatam, solet belulav hashamen, shlosha esronim lahapar, shnei esronim la'il. V'yisaron echad, lekeves ha'echad, leshivat ha'akvasim. Useir ezim echad chatat, lechaper alechem. Milvad olat hachodesh, umin chata, ve'olat hatamid, umin chata, v'nishkechem k'mishpatam, lereach nichoach isha lahadonai.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brandon. Excellent job. You know, there's a custom that when your parents read that you should stand for your parents, but of course in the Fight family, they stand when their kids read from the Torah. Ricky now completes the Aliyah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notin haTorah.
Amen. We're going to rise again for the lifting and dressing of our second Sefer Torah.
V'zot ha'Torah asher sam Moshe livnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Hashem miYerushalayim. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Hashem miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah leyamo Yisrael. Baruch shenatan Torah leyamo Yisrael b'kedushato ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Hashem miYerushalayim. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Hashem miYerushalayim.
You may be seated. We're going to pause now and do a prayer for the ill. If you have any names you'd like to add, you can stand in place. I'll pause at one point, and any person you'd like to pray for, just say their name aloud. Those of you watching at home, the same goes for you. If you have someone you'd like to pray for, please rise, and when I pause, say their names aloud. Mishaberach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarav Karachav Leah, Yivarech Yirpeh. ואת כל החולים בקהילה הקדושה שלנו, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם להחזיקם רפואתם, וישלח להם מהר רפואה שם מן השמיים, פרוט נפש הגוף, בתוך שאר חולי ישראל, שבת היא, יום תרועה הוא, מלזרוק רפואה קרובה לבוא, השלג זמן קריב, ונאמר, Amen. May God bless our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bring blessing and healing to all those we mentioned and all those who suffer illness within our congregational family. May the Holy One mercifully restore them to health and vigor, grant to them physical and spiritual being, together with all others who are ill. And although Shabbat is a time to refrain from petitions, we yet hope and pray that healing is at hand. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. We'll continue now with our Haftarah, chanted by Ricky Chaskis. The Haftarah can be found in the book on page 182. Page 182.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar benim tovim, v'rasa v'divreihem nemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'torah, u'Moshe avdoho, u'Yisrael amoho, u'mivyei ha'emet v'asedek. Vayehi Yishechai min haramatayim, Sofi mehar Ephraim, Ushmo al nechana ben Yerocham ben Elihu ben Tohu ben Zuv Ephrati. Veloho shetei nashim, Shem achad hana, Veshem hasheni pnina ha, Vayihi lipnina yaladim, Ulechana in yaladim. Vela ha'ish hahu meiroho, Miyamihim yamima, Lehishachavot velizboa, Ladonai sevaot veshiloho, Vesham shnei b'nei Eli, Hafinihu penihinas, Kohanihim la'Adonai. Vayihi hayom vayizbach, Elchana ben Natan, Lifnina ishto, Ulechol baneha uvnotecha manot, Ulechana itehem mana achat apahayim, Ki et hana achev, Va'Adonai sagar rachmaha. V'kiyasatah saratah gaham ka'ahas, Va'avur harimah, Ki sagar Adonai be'ad rachmah. V'kin yaser shana b'shana, Midei alochas v'veit Adonai, Ken takisena, Vatiche velo tochal, Vayomer la Elchana, Isha hachana lametiki, Melamer lo tochli, Melamer yirei levavecha, Halo anochi tovach me'asara banim, Batacham chana acharei, Achla b'shilo ve'acharei shato ve'eli hakohen, Yoshev al hakisev al mezuzat echal Adonai. Vayehi marahat nafesh vehitpalel al Adonai uvachotichi vatidon ezer vatomar Adonai sevahot imraot tireh va'anihi amatecha uzechartani velo tishkach et amatecha. Menatata la'amatcha zera anashim, untati l'Adonai kol yemei chayah, umorah lo yale al rosho. V'haya ki harba'et alibahal, lifnei Adonai ve'eli shomer et piha. V'chana Hihi marbeit ali baharach sefartecha naot ve'kolaha lo yishameh ushavecha eli l'shichorah Vayomer elecha Eli, ad matai tishtacharin, hasiri et yenech me'alai. Vata'ahan chana vatomer lo Adoni, Isha kishad ruach anoki, ve'ayin v'shechar lo shaniti, v'achshevechat et nafshi lifnei Adonai. Al titin et amahatcha lihipnei bachliyah, ki merav ziki v'chasidi baharti ad chena. Vayan Eli vayomer leki l'shalom Elohei Yisrael itin et shalchatcha asher shalt me'imo vatomer timsa shivchatcha chen b'chliyah vateh ha'isha lidarcha vatocha ufaneha lo hayu la'ot vashkimu vavoker vayushechevu lifnei Adonai hayeshuvu vayavu el beitam haramahata Vadahan el-Chanaha et-Chanaha Isho Vayiskereha Adonai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Sor kol halamim Sadif kol hadorot Ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer b'yoseh Ha'medaber mechayim Shekol dvarav emet v'sedek Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'anim devarecha V'devarcha mivarecha Akor lo yashuv rekam Ki el melech Ne'eman v'rachaman atah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el ha'ne'eman B'chol dvarav Rachim al Sion ki v'chayenu Ve'laluvat nefesh toshia b'mheira b'yameinu Baruch atah Adonai Misameach Sion b'manecha
Amen.
Samkeinu Adonai Eloheinu b'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha U'malchut v'David meshichecha B'mheira yavo v'yagel libeinu Al kiso lo yeshiv zar v'lo yinchalu od achirim et kevodo Ki v'shem kosheka nishbata lo shelo yichbene ro le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Magin Tzadi
Amen.
Al HaTorah v'al Havodah v'al Hanvim v'al Yom HaShabbat hazeh v'al Yom HaZikaron hazeh Shenatat lanu Adonai Eloheinu B'dusha v'linucha ha'lichavot u'tifaret Al HaKol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modihim lach U'barachim otach Yitbarach Shemcha b'fichol chai tamid le'olam va'ed U'devarcha emet v'chaya la'ad Baruch atah Adonai
Yishmo.
Melech al kol ha'aretz Mekadesh ha'shabbat v'Yisrael v'yom ha'zikaron
Amen. Shkoach. Ricky, Mazel Tov again and getting your own classroom this year. We rise now and turn to page 196. We've asked Dr. Andy Weber to read the prayer for our country today in honor of his father who served for decades in the New York City Police Department.
Our God and God of our fathers, we ask your blessing for our country, for its government, for its leader and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights of your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. Then citizens of all races and creeds will forge a common bond in true brotherhood to banish all hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions which our country's pride and glory. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all men in peace and freedom, and helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall men learn war anymore. And let us say amen.
Amen. We remain standing as the cantor leads us in the prayer for the state of Israel, the bottom of page 196. Thank you, Dr. Weber.
Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Marech, Marech, et Medinat Yisrael, Reshet Tzmechat Gulatenu, Hagen Aleha, Mevrod Chastecha, Ufros Aleha, Sukhat Shlomecha. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Ushlach orecha v'hameirecha l'rasheha sareha v'yotzeho v'taknei be'itaha Tova v'taknei me'itah Tova milefanecha. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Chazek, 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 et yedei meginei Eretz Kodshenu, v'hanech ileim Eloheinu, Yeshua, Yeshua, v'tered nitzachon teatrem, v'natata shalom, shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam li'yosheyeha. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael ve'govalo. V'nomare, v'nomare, amen.
Amen. We remain standing and turn to page 210 as we return our Torahs to the Ark.
Etchayim hi lama chazikim ha v'tomcheha meyushar deracheha darchenam v'chol netivoteha shalom Ashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kerem.
You may be seated. Shana Tova. You may have heard, but this year is, I know I'm going to shock you, an election year. And in honor of that great moment in time, I have researched the Jewish tradition. I have plumbed the depths of the Talmud, the Midrash, the Mishnah, medieval commentary, modern philosophy, and polled my colleagues. And I can say that without a doubt, 100%, our Jewish tradition teaches that this November, every Jew must vote, period. And yes, I believe that is in fact true, but perhaps in the moment when I paused, you felt some tension. Perhaps some of you began writing the email demanding my resignation, or the email saying, thank God he's finally saying what I want him to say, or the email saying you were leaving, or whatever. But I'm willing to bet that many, if not all of you, felt a lot. You felt something strongly and passionately. And I think at this moment in time, it is clear that politics rise to the forefront of our identity. It challenges us. It's hard to hear when someone thinks the opposite of what we think. Pew does a study every year where they say, what divides America most? What is the thing that we are most in conflict about? Until about 10 years ago, the answer was religion. I don't know if this is good or bad that religion came off the top of the list, but politics is now at the top. And there is a story from the Talmud that I'd like to share that I think addresses that tension, that conflict. In the 3rd century CE, there is a rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan, who is known as the best rabbi of the time. Top in every way. All Jews looked to this rabbi. And at the time, it was understood that his wisdom was so great that it actually manifested physically. That when you saw him, he was not just a good-looking man, but you could see the wisdom ooze out of him, that you could stand in awe of all he had to share. And as he was traveling from one place to another, a robber jumps out of the bushes, a man named Reish Lakish. And he's got his tools, his weapons of thievery. And when he jumps out and he sees Rabbi Yochanan, he is so in awe of this special wisdom that he drops his weapons and says, "Teach me what it is to be like you." And Rabbi Yochanan is so impressed with this flash decision that Reish Lakish has made that he makes him his study partner. And the two become so close that, in fact, Reish Lakish marries Rabbi Yochanan's sister. And the two become known as a chevruta, a partner, who study together all the time and who challenge each other on everything. Everything Rabbi Yochanan says, the greatest scholar of the time, Reish Lakish says the opposite and pushes him and pushes him. And through that pushing, they reach deeper and more intense truths that become closer to God. But one day, Rabbi Yochanan shares his point of view, and Reish Lakish pushes, and it's hard for Rabbi Yochanan. He's getting more and more furious. It's building. Who is this guy who came from nothing to challenge him? And he keeps pushing and pushing, and Rabbi Yochanan, he gets so furious, he looks at Reish Lakish and says, "You're just a thief. Who are you to challenge me?" And Reish Lakish says, "Why raise me up and call me rabbi if you're just going to remind me of my past?" But Rabbi Yochanan does not let go. He is so furious that just as his wisdom manifests, so does his fury. His fury becomes real in the world, so much so that Reish Lakish gets deathly ill. And Rabbi Yochanan is so angry that Reish Lakish pushed back that he won't even pray for Reish Lakish's healing. And Reish Lakish passes away. The story continues that Rabbi Yochanan is so despondent over the loss of his friend and study partner and the choices that he made that his students don't know what to do for him. So they look around and they bring the next guy in line. It was Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, so the number 3 guy. They bring him to say, study with Rabbi Yochanan. And they go to study together, and every time Rabbi Yochanan makes a point, the new guy says, "You're right. And here's 3 reasons why you're right. You're right, you're right, you're right." Until Rabbi Yochanan screams at him, "Every point I made, Reish Lakish would challenge me 25 times, and the truth we found, the wisdom we unlocked was deeper and more meaningful than anything that I am getting from you who just says you're right." And Rabbi Yochanan is so despondent that he actually passes away from his loneliness. It's a story of warning. It's a story that recognizing how infuriating it is when someone believes that thing that you think is so wrong. Someone you think doesn't have the right to challenge you, to say that opposite thing, what it feels like. It is a story for us at this moment. I can't tell you how many people have told me privately, "I'm afraid to share what I believe politically. I'm afraid to tell people that and you could fill in the blank with literally anything. Whatever the end of that sentence is, I'm afraid." And that worries me. That worries me that we're going down the path of Rabbi Yochanan. So I want to suggest, those of you who know me should not be surprised, 3 things. I want to suggest 3 ways we might learn from the story of Rabbi Yochanan. The first is to listen. The second is to challenge. And the third is to create a safe space. To listen means that we take all of the things that we believe, the things we know to be true, and we put them aside for a little bit. And we sit with the person who thinks the thing that a minute ago we knew to be wrong, but for a few moments we believe maybe it could be right. There's another story from the Mishnah about the first 2 schools of rabbis, the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai. And they disagreed about everything, and I mean everything, big stuff, small stuff, everything. So much so that finally a voice from the heavens comes down and says, the law always follows the school of Hillel. And what's fascinating is the reason given for why they follow the school of Hillel. It's not because Hillel's right. It's not because Hillel has better arguments. It's because Hillel, when he teaches his teachings, first shares the teachings of Shammai. Before he says what he believes, he teaches the other school's thoughts. A mentor of mine, Rabbi Wolpe, recently made a prescription for a better future. He said, if we want a better future, what we should do is we should go to dinner with the people we disagree with most. And for that whole dinner, the only thing you can do is argue the other person's point of view. Is to stick up for what the other person believes. It all amounts to the idea is, can we make space in ourselves to listen to the one, really hear where the other person is coming from and what their beliefs mean to them. The second is to challenge. After we listen, can we bring everything we believe back in and push back? Can we say, like Reish Lakish did, I don't agree with you. Here is all of the reasons why. In fact, our Torah says that to rebuke our neighbor is a mitzvah, is an obligation from God, that when we see our fellow doing something wrong or saying a wrong thing, it is our responsibility to call them out and tell them. But it gives us rules, ways to do that. We must do it in a way that maintains human dignity, that doesn't insult the other person, that doesn't attack them. Too often, especially online, but too often when we hear an opinion we don't agree with, the response is either to call names, or we say sad, or wake up. None of which argues against, all of which says you, other person, are inferior, less than, not good enough. We have to challenge, we have to stick up, not forget what we believe in, but push back on the other person in a way that focuses on the idea or the action and not on the failings of the person we're talking to. Third, the problem with the first two is if the other person isn't also doing it, you're not in a safe place. You're going to get attacked while you try and not attack. So the third thing is we have to create some spaces that are safe, where it's okay to believe what you believe, even though it makes the other person furious and angry. The kind of space where we can say, I love you. I don't agree with a single word you say, but I still love you. And the challenge is, can we make our dinner tables, our Thanksgiving tables, our Zoom tables, I suppose, and maybe our shul tables, a place where that happens? Synagogue, and especially our synagogue, is one of the few places in life where people who genuinely disagree might be able to come together and have a conversation with each other. Because whatever we think about American politics, we Jews for 3,000 years have been struggling to maintain our identity, our purpose, our connection to God. And perhaps in this space we can keep that connection first, and that be the basis of the love and the safe space for the first two thoughts. And in honor of that goal, I've partnered with a group called Resetting the Table. They go to organizations and they help them have difficult conversations. They work with Jewish and not Jewish. They work with nonprofit and the corporate world. And they run a training. How do we talk to each other so that we still feel safe and we still hear each other? And I asked Cindy Maddy and Paul Waldor to chair the committee. If you know them, you know they come from opposite ends of the political spectrum, but still find a way to have nice things to say about each other. And we're going to be you'll get an email on Monday. The info is currently on the website. We're going to be running trainings at the end of October on Zoom and then a town hall after the election, where hopefully we can create some space in our synagogue world to really talk to each other. On November 4th, some people in this room and this virtual room are going to wake up thrilled and excited. And some people are going to be devastated and feel unheard. But everyone is still going to be a member of this community, is still going to be our neighbor, our fellow, our partner. And the question I have for us in 5781 is, can we learn the lesson of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish? Can we acknowledge the fury and the frustration that that person believes that thing that is so wrong and still say, I love you? Can we look at each other, put our beliefs aside and listen? Can we bring our beliefs back and challenge from a place of holiness and honor? And can we create a safe space here in our synagogue to do it? I hope so. Shana Tova. We're going to continue with our abbreviated Musaf service. We rise, you can actually be seated. The cantor rises. Apologize. For Hineni on page 236.
Hineni ani mimas nirash nivchar mipachad yoshev tilot Yisrael oyvati lamor lechanein lefanecha alamecha alamecha Yisrael asher shlachuni Afalepihi v'afalepihi sheini chedai v'hakun lechach alekein havakeshcha Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Ve'Elohei Yaakov Adonai Adonai El Rachum V'Chanun Elohei Yisrael Oyeshaddai Ayom Benora Heyana Matzliach Dareki Asher Anochi Olech Lamod Levakesh Rachamim Alay V'yale Sholechai V'na'al Tavshiyeh Mechatotai V'atechayvim B'vanotai Ki chotev Oshani V'yikalmuhu B'vshoai V'yivoshuvi V'levoshavam V'kabel tefilati Ketevilat zaken V'rahagilu firkonawe Uzegano megudale V'kolo naim Umeora bedat Im haberihot V'tigar v'satan Leval yastinehini Vina דגלנו עליך ועל כל פשעים תכסה באהבה וכל צרות ורעות. הפך לנו לכל ישראל לששון ולשמחה, לחיים ולשלום. האמת והשלום יהבו ולא יהי שום מכשול בתפילתי. ויהי רצון לבניך, אדוני אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, העליון אשר היה שכל המלאכים שהם בעלי תפילות יביאו תפילתי לפני כיסא כבודך ויציג אותה לבניך בעבור כל הצדיקים והחסידים התמימים והישרים ובעבור כבוד שמך, שמך הגדול והנורא, כי אתה שומע תפילת עמך ישראל ברחמים. ברוך אתה שומע tefillah.
We rise for the silent Amidah, 216 through 227. 216 through 227. I encourage you to use the words on the page or the words in your heart. If you haven't finished your private Amidah, you should take your time and finish at whatever pace you feel comfortable. We're going to begin our abbreviated repetition on page 238, page 238.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloi avoteinu Elohei Avraham leYitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor Oy, 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 ve'anorah Elyon gomel chasadim tovim ve'koneh hakol v'zocher Oy, 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 chazedei avot. Umevei goel livnei v'neihem, leman shemo b'yahava. Misor chachamim u'nevonim, ומלמדה מבינים עבדך פי בתפילה ותחנונים לחלות ולחנין פני מלך מלכי המלכים ואדוני האדונים זוכרנו לחיים מלך חפץ בחיים וכותבנו בספר החיים וכותבנו בספר החיים למענך אלוהים חיים לחוזר מושיע ומגן Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Atah gibor le'olam Adonai mechametim atah rav lehoshia mechalek lechaim bechesed Mechayim eitim berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofech cholim Umahatir asurim Umekayim emunato Lihishene yafar מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי ידע מלך מלך מימד מחיה ומצמיח ישועה מי כמוך Avarachamim Zocher Yitzurav Lechayim Berachamim Venemanata Lechayot Metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei Ametim.
Amen. We remain standing as the ark is open on page 240, and we ask God, please, to have mercy on us and to annul the decree. Unatana Tokef, we ask God who will die in the coming year.
ובכן לחטא לקדושה כי אתה אלוהינו מלך ונתן תוקף קדושת היום כי הוא נורא ואיום, ובו תינשא מלכותך, ויכון בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו, ותשב עליו באמת. אמת אמת כי אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח, ויודע בהר, וחוטא וסופר ומונה, ותזכור כל הנשכחות, ותפתח ספר הזיכרונות, ומעליו יקרא, וחותם יד כל אדם בו, ובשופר גדול ייתקע, וכל דממה דקה יישמע, ובשופר גדול ייתקע, וכל דממה דקה יישמע, ומלאכים יחפזון, וכילו רדיו חזון, ויאמרו, הנה יום הדין, לבכור על צבא המרום בדין, לבכור על צבא המרום בדין, כי לא יזכו בניך בדין, בדין. וכל באי לעולם יעברו לפניך, כי הבניהם אהרון כבקרת רעו את רוע, מעביר את צאנו תחת שבטו, תחת שבטו, כהנה תעביר ותספור ותמנה, ותפקוד נפש כל חי, נפש כל חי, ותחתוך קצבה, ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריאה, ותכתוב את גזר דינם, גזר דינם, בראש השנה יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, בראש השנה יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, כמה יעבורון וכמה יברחון, מי יחיה ומי ימות, מי בקיצו ומי לא בקיצו, בראש השנה יכתבון, ויום צום כיפור יכתבון, מבאש ומבמים, מבחרב ומבחיה, מברעב ומבצמא, מברעש ומבמגפה, מבחניקה ומבסקילה, בראש השנה יקטבון ויום צומקי בו יחתמון מינוח ומינוע מישחית ומטורף מישלב ומתייסר מעני ומעשיר מיושפל ומירום בראש השנה יקטבון וביום צומקי בו יחתמון ותשובה ודבילה וצדקה מעבירין את רוע הגזרה.
Your glory is your nature, slow to anger, ready to forgive. You desire not the sinner's death, but that he turn from his path and live. Until the day of his death you wait for him. Whenever he returns, you welcome him at once. Truly, you are creator and know the weakness of your creatures, who are but flesh and blood.
האדם יסתובב בסוף לבב ונפשו יביא לחמו משהו גרס נשמע כציר יבש כסיס נובל כצל עובר חינן כלך רוגנו שבת ויבא פורה וכחלום יאוהו ואתה הוא מלך אליך חי וקיים אין כספל שנותיך מקצור כמך ואין שיעור למקרבו כבודיך ופירוש לעולם שמך שמך נלך ותנלך לשמך ושמנו קראתה וישמך.
We remain standing for the Kedusha at the bottom of page 242. The ark is closed, but we remain standing. 242.
כהסוס יוספי קודש מקדישים שבחה בקודש דרים מעליים דרי מטה ככתוב ביד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה היה מקום כבודו לימתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך יבוא אדוני ממקומו ממקומו אהיבם ברחמים ויחונם יחד עם שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו אבינו הוא מלכנו מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמה ושנית לעיני כל חי והוא ישמיענו ברחמה ושנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם אלוהים אדיר אדיננו אדוני אדינו ועד שמך בכל הארץ ואדוני מלך כל הארץ ומלך ושמו אחד דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגלך נצח נצחים קדושך נגד אלוהינו מפינו למשלים בעת כי המגרו ולראש אתה חמול מעשיך ונשמח מעשיך ויאמר לך חוסיך בצדקך עמוסיך תוקדש אדון על כל מעשיך.
The Musaf Amidah is broken up into 3 parts, each of which we will touch on in the next few moments. Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot. First, we acknowledge the Creator as ruler of all with Malchuyot, page 258. This Aleinu comes with a full prostration. If you are comfortable, and it appears everyone has space, you are welcome to join us by laying flat on the ground in the middle of this prayer.
Gedula liot breshit shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot velo samanu kemishbechot hadama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שם שמיים. כי המלכות שלך היא עולם מעטים לך בכבוד.
The ark is closed and you may be seated. We first acknowledge God as the Melech, as the ruler and creator of all. We continue to acknowledge God as with zichronot, with remembrance. And we say, Ribono Shel Olam, creator of all that is, please remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Remember all that they did and merit us for their actions. Remember all the times in Jewish history when Jews have faced intense difficulty but not given up faith in you, and grant us merit for their actions. Remember our ancestors. Remember our family who are not with us now, and let us feel their presence. And please, God, help us remember. Help us remember our story, our family. Help us remember our souls. Help us remember you. And let us say, Amen. Amen. We continue on page 286. We read, wrong page, 278. Sorry, that's the next part. 278, and we read together in the English where it says, today the world is born, in the middle of the page on 279. Today the world is born. Today all creatures everywhere stand in judgment, some as children and some as slaves. If we merit consideration as children, show us a father's mercy. If we stand in judgment as slaves, grant us freedom. We look to you for compassion when you declare our fate awesome, holy God. In this moment, if it were not Shabbat, we would also hear the blasts of the shofar, hear their call. But there is something special about the quiet of Shabbat that even on this day we don't hear that blast. So we're going to be quiet for just 30 seconds while we ask ourselves, what do we want to hear from the shofar? And we rise again on page 286 as the ark is opened for Hayom, today.
Hayom, 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 teyam seinu.
Amen.
Hayom, 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 hayom. Hayom, 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 tevarcheinu.
Amen.
Hayom, 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 Hayom hayom tegadleinu.
Amen.
Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom tidrashenu letova.
Amen.
Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom tichtevenu lechayim tovim.
Amen.
Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom tishma shavatenu.
Amen.
Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom tigaber berachamim ratzon tfilatenu.
Amen.
Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom 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 hayom. Hayom titmechenu b'yamin tzikecha.
Amen. The ark is closed. And it really was much more convenient when I had an army of people opening and closing the ark. We're going to continue with the mourner's Kaddish. So if you are in mourning or observing yahrzeit, I encourage you to please stand. Otherwise, you may be seated. Kaddish Yatom is found on page 294. Page 294 is the mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal ve'yit gadash shemei rabbah. Bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala ubizman kariv imru. Amen. Ye'esh mei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha berechu. Le'ela minkol birchata v'shirata. Tush berchata v'nechemata. Da'amiram bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehesh lama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May all those who mourn find some comfort amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. I have two quick things I want to say, and then I'm going to turn the microphone over to someone else. The first is, I can't actually see who it is, but those of you who are sitting in the way back, I just want to double thank you for your commitment and thank you for joining us. We really appreciate. Obviously, this is not the ideal setup, so thank you to you guys. I see some hands moving, so I think you're there, but you get double points in the book of life, okay? The second thing is, I want you to know that before this holiday began, I got a text from a congregant that was not so subtly threatening. It said, I know you know how good of a job Ellen has been doing as president, and I'm sure you will make sure everyone else knows as well. So hopefully there's no horse head in my bed. But without a doubt, we are blessed to have our president, Dr. Ellen Feit, who will now share a few announcements. You can pick which microphone, whatever makes you feel better. Whatever you want. The camera will find you.
Only because this is how we do it on Shabbat. So, first of all, when you alluded to the army of people helping you, that's been me for the last 15 years, and I would trade places in a heartbeat to be able to do that again this year, although it is a pleasure to sit with my family, because you guys are pretty nice. I like you. But anyway, this is so hard. Bizarre. It's not what I anticipated when I became president, but it is what it is, and I thank you all for your patience and understanding as we have to wear masks at 12 feet apart, have all these crazy sections in the ballroom. It doesn't look the same, but it is what it is. And I know this isn't the holiday where we say next year in Jerusalem, but I do hope next year we're all together where we can hug and kiss and be together. And although these are abbreviated services, the one thing I can't abbreviate is the thank you. And I owe a thank you and a debt of gratitude to so many people. First of all, to the rabbi who devised these services, and thank you to the cantor who we've been thinking about this since March 15th when we had to close down what the high holidays would look like, and we were back and forth saying, no, we'll be together, this will all be over, and here we are with not necessarily an end in sight, but I am hoping that come 2021, maybe things will be better. But anyway, thank you, Rabbi and Cantor. Thank you, Paul, because without you, this wouldn't have happened. Thank you, Cindy, for helping Paul today. And I have to thank my High Holiday Task Force, which I didn't think we would ever need, but we did. So thank you again to Paul, David Adelheit, David Sakai, Jeff Fatchler, Brian Rayani, and Andy Lagnato. And of course, again, Rabbi Cantor, Michelle, Sylvia, and Arnie, for helping us put together these services. There's so much that this entails, you have no idea. Thank you so much to Victor and Dolores and Great Neck Games for spending so much time with us, putting up all these screens and just making the AV work out so well, so thank you. Thank you also to Phyllis Adelheit and Leslie Levy, who provided expertise and architectural support in devising how the ballroom and sanctuary should be set up, so we're all 12 feet apart and safe together. I have to thank my executive board, who always has my back and who I've cried to a lot lately. And I thank you to my entire board who just supports us in all of this. And I also thank my health and safety committee, who behind the scenes is also my sounding board. I don't want to make all these health decisions myself, so I thank Mark Firestein, Bruce Greenberg, Alan Maltz, and Hank Leibowitz. I said Alan Maltz, right? I don't want to forget anybody. I thank you also. And again, without you guys being here supporting us, we wouldn't be a synagogue. So thank you for your patience, your understanding. I wish all of you a happy, healthy, safe, and sweet new year. This afternoon, again, we're having services. Feel free if you want to live stream. Tomorrow, we'll be here again, 8:30 to 10, 12 to 1:30. Tomorrow afternoon at 6 p.m. is Tashlich. Normally we do it today. We can't because it's Shabbat. So 6 p.m. tomorrow. And then Monday and Tuesday, we'll be having Torah time instead of the part of the Ne'ilah service where we stand in front of the ark and say our own prayers. Because of social distancing, we can't do that. So if you'd like to join us Monday or Tuesday, we have a sign up on our website, and we hope you'll take advantage of that. There's a lot else to come that'll be on the website, and I'll announce later, but I know this has to be somewhat abbreviated. So Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova, and next year I hope we can all hug and kiss.
Shana Tova, there's, I'm told, a saying in showbiz, which is leave them wanting more. I'm wanting more. So if you want more, our website, like Ellen said, is full of extra content. And in fact, when you get home at 10:30, I'll be teaching a Zoom class on some of the meanings behind these prayers if you are comfortable joining in. If not, I want to say thank you for coming in and making this work. This is it's such a special thing to be able to hear a response to a prayer. So thank you.
You're going to get your wish at 12 o'clock. You're going to get more.
12 o'clock, again? We're going to close with Adon Olam, page 298. Adon Olam ends with the words, God is with me, I shall not fear, and Lord, I hope that's true.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa v'chefzo kol Azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlot hakol לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה, בלי ראשי בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצורכיו לי ביצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא בידו, הפקיד רוחי וידשן ויעירה, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Shana Tova, everyone. Please, I guess, air elbow everyone on the way out. Shana Tova, wishing you a sweet new year. The books. What do we do with the books, Paul? On the way out. Okay, tali or book on the way out. We're going to detox them.